Why is the Biden administration reopening a temporary facility for migrant children in Texas?
Well, first, the policy of this administration, as you well know, but just for others, is not to expel unaccompanied children who arrive at the border. This is not kids being kept in cages. This is kids. This is a facility that was opened.
I believe that kids are resilient and kids will recover, but we as adults have to meet their needs, their emotional needs, their social needs, their learning needs.
That is the head of the teachers union, just in case you didn't know, the national head of one of the two big monolithic teachers unions saying that we have to meet the needs of the children. Okay.
So there are things, even if you're vaccinated, that you're not going to be able to do in society. For example, indoor dining, theaters, places where people congregate.
I'm over Dr. Fauci. I think we need to have more people giving more opinions. And I honestly, quite frankly, I think the Biden administration should remove him and put someone else in place that maybe does understand science.
Here, here. Woman of the Week, Meghan McCain, is right on. Sayonara, Fauci. This guy's just got to go. Enough, enough, enough. By the way, Meghan McCain, Alice, was lucky enough to share a 10-minute conversation with your husband.
Wow.
In person in Manhattan, New York.
Wow.
Is
she fangirling?
I've sensed an energy there that was inappropriate, considering I had a wedding ring.
Wow.
So I really am reticent to ever play Fauci, and again, it's so he's just such a he's a sound of the fax machine, you know. It's just this droning, freaking empty pit of despair that he sings this sad siren song for every day, day in and day out, because he loves TV. He's addicted to TV. That's what he does. He's just on TV a lot. The left, because still somehow symbolically Fauci is a proxy in their war against Trump, somehow people find themselves, don't you dare say that about him. Don't you understand what he's done? It's, you know, some people need to learn science. They say some people need to learn science. These idiots saying things like that, throwing around science, have not... The thing is, they're in love with Fauci, having never listened to a damn thing he said. He's just got this aura of being paternal and a nurturer, and he says sciencey stuff, like particulates and nasal pharynges or whatever he says. And this guy is a moron. I don't care. I understand that he is trained in something and he's got a skill. That's fine. But he is really a talking head. And as a mouthpiece now, he has not only been corrupted, sometimes by himself, most recently by the teachers' unions, but his instincts are always wrong. He's always wrong about most things. It's remarkable.
Yeah, for a guy whose main job seems to be PR, he's really bad at PR.
Yes, and then, but the problem is that his job shouldn't be for doing PR for Team Biden. He shouldn't be working for Jen Psaki, but he is. He works for Jen Psaki, and Jen Psaki works for the teachers unions. And that's where it is right now. It is remarkable. So this is Fauci. Telling you that no matter what, if you're getting a little excited about the vaccines, and we're seeing from Israel that these vaccines have an efficacy that couldn't be better. That if you're seeing this, Fauci is saying, whoa, calm down, don't get excited. This is not going, no. This is not fully liberated.
We are still at an unacceptably high baseline level, with the 7-day average being quite high. So there are things, even if you're vaccinated, that you're not going to be able to do in society. For example, indoor dining, theaters, places where people congregate. That's because of the safety of society.
F you. F you.
Things you're still not going to be able to do.
Can you imagine? Who the hell is this guy, this fraud, this flim-flam man to tell people, no, even if you get vaccinated, even whenever we're vaccinated for everything else, we're allowed to do everything else. But now, no, even if you get vaccinated, no. Indoor dining is going to be a no. Because, oh, well, he's going to tell us why. Because, which makes me just think angry, semi-violent thoughts about him.
You yourself, what you can do when you are together with another person, we are looking at that. And we're going to try and find out very quickly what recommendations could be made about what people can do. One of the things that's universal here that we know that at this point in time, it is unclear whether when you get vaccinated and you might be protected from clinical disease, which is the primary endpoint of the vaccine.
Last year at this time, he was telling people to go on cruises. Still. Yes, of course you can go on cruises. Of course. No, don't worry about it. We're going to get through this. We're going to flatten a little curve
Just
here.
get your flu shot. This is not, the flu's more deadly than COVID. It's fine. Nothing to see here.
Studies that you could conceivably be infected, have virus in your nasopharynx, and
F nasal pharynxes, okay? We don't need to be knowing that word, ever. If it is a word. And I don't believe it is. It sounds like Pharaoh and Sphinx to me, and I'm not kneeling at the altar of either of those, or your buddy Fauci, Alice. I am done. Nasal pharynx. There's a chance that between shots, somewhere in your nose, somewhere there could be a bit of the virus that could somehow, if you sneeze and cough at the same time, get extra projectile power and make its way across somebody you're dining with. And we just can't risk that because that person is overwhelmingly likely to survive if they feel anything, if they get the virus at all.
Well, right. There's a 90% efficacy against transmission, according to 2 new studies that are out.
This guy needs to pack his bleep up and get out of the building.
At that same time have no symptoms, which is the reason why we recommend and say you still need to wear a mask. Because if you do have virus in your nasopharynx, even though we hope that when the data comes in, it's going to show that the very virus level is quite low and you're not transmitting it. We don't know that now.
Yeah, this show is over. Yeah. We are done with all of this.
Fauci's time of being on TV is drawing to a close.
Right, and now he's giving us reasons. He's leaving little breadcrumbs, little Easter eggs for later, the reasons why we're going to need Fauci in summer, and we're going to need him later this year, and then we're going to need him again more. Yeah. Because you're going to need more restrictions, and you're going to need more suggestions, and now he's got extra life. Now, you don't think that he's going to be getting consulting fees from the teachers' unions after this? Big dollar items to write official recommendations for what needs to be had, for how much more money schools need. Half of these clowns in the lab coats are going to be working as consultants for the teachers' unions. Every union, as a matter of fact.
Like our future Surgeon General, too.
Right. No, this is craziness. This guy sucks. Meghan McCain had it right.
Really quickly, I just wanted to show a clip of Dana Bash talking to Dr. Fauci this weekend.
My parents have already gotten their second dose. They're fully vaccinated. Does that mean it's okay for them to spend time with their grandchildren who obviously have not been vaccinated? What's your recommendation?
You know, I'm not going to make a recommendation now except to say that these are things that we really do. I mean, literally every day, Dana, we look at that, we look at the data, we look at what's evolving about how many people are getting vaccinated, and there will be recommendations coming out. I don't want to be making a recommendation now on public TV. We want to sit down with the team, take a look at that.
So I was very frustrated when I saw this clip. I first and foremost want to say that I respect the great tragedy and all the pain that has come of our handling of the coronavirus. And there are 500,000 Americans that don't have family members, and it's horrific and very sad. And the grief that our country is going through should not be downplayed. That being said, we are next week it will be a year since we left studio, and I have been very responsible in many different ways, as so many Americans have been. And the fact that Dr. Fauci is going on CNN and he can't tell me that if I get the vaccine, if I'll be able to have dinner with my family or dinner with, I mean, I don't have any grandparents left, but older people, if I can go to dinner at friends' houses who are older, it's terribly inconsistent messaging, and it continues to be inconsistent messaging. In Israel, in Tel Aviv, one of the messages that they have, I saw a sign that said, get a shot, take a shot. Meaning, if I get the vaccine, then I can go out and I can have shots with my friends. Is the science in Israel different than the science here in the United States of America? Because Israel has over half of their country vaccinated already and seem to be doing pretty well. The idea that I can get vaccinated and I won't be able to see friends and nothing in life changes and that we're going to have to wear masks forever, I don't understand the downplaying of getting the vaccine, because right now we should be wanting as many Americans as possible to get a vaccine. The fact that I, Meghan McCain, co co-host of The View. I don't know when or how I will be able to get a vaccine because the rollout for my age range and my health is so nebulous. I have no idea when and how I can get it. I want to get it.
She's catching a little grief for that little
for that,
right
like,
there.
I, Meghan McCain.
I'm not sure that's how she meant it.
I don't think she meant it that way, clearly.
Call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I will go any place at any time to get it. I want to be responsible and obviously wait my turn. But this rollout has been a disaster. And I understand, obviously, President Trump can take much of the blame. But now we're in the Biden administration. I, for one, would like something to look forward to and to hope for. Because if getting the vaccine means that just nothing changes and we have to wait another few years till everyone gets it, there's already a lot of people not getting it. We're already having a messaging problem getting people to take this vaccine. So I'm over Dr. Fauci. I think we need to have more people giving more opinions. And I honestly, quite frankly, I think the Biden administration should remove him and put someone else in place that maybe does understand science or can talk to other countries about how we can be more like these places that are doing this successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great comments by Meghan McCain.
Yeah, brilliant.
Very good comments. She cites the Israel example, saying that if this works for Israel, where you get your shot and then you can go take a shot with friends in an enclosed place, that it's good enough for them, that their numbers are going great over there. Mm-hmm. She talks about the fact that Fauci's been so rigid and that he doesn't see that he's drifted away from what is considered the hard science, from the very CDC. And the director of the CDC, and she lays out some excellent points, and she's right. The guy should be whacked out of his job.
Yeah, especially since he's going around saying that, 500,000 dead, we did the worst of any country in the world. Well, who was running the response, Dr. Fauci?
Right, that's a great point.
Who was
that's
there?
A great point. So now listen to Whoopi Goldberg. After everything Meghan McCain just said, somehow, in the big leaderboard... if you let Fauci get hit somehow, that means Trump somehow wins. So she's got to put it all out there for Fauci.
Mm-hmm. Well, in part, I'll just say this little thing about Israel. Israel had a completely different rollout, and it works. It's also a smaller country, and they didn't have a lot of issues with people not wearing their masks.
This country didn't have a lot of issues with people not wearing masks. Most people wear masks here and in Israel. It's just the problem is that the masks don't really do that much. That's
so
the
really,
biggest
so
problem.
500,000 people died because of no masks.
Because
that's remarkable.
Not enough
those are
people
cases
wore
where
masks.
Those are cases where people were affected by people who didn't wear masks.
Because Trump told people not to wear masks when Dr. Fauci, since day one, has been saying 100% people
that is remarkable because a lot
masks.
of mask wearers died. I would think that most of those 500,000 people were mask wearers who died. Mm-hmm. That is just a canard. If you want to say that there's a direct correlation between non-masks and also these spikes that came out of nowhere did not correlate directly with the spreading events that we were told that were going to cause these spikes. This is absolute horse bleed.
So, yeah, you probably could get your shot, but you're going to go outside and be surrounded by people who have not gotten their shot, and they don't know yet how protected you're going to be. This is all stuff that...
Yes, they do know.
Yeah,
they do know. Everybody in Israel is protected after getting their shot. It doesn't matter. Somebody could hurl coronavirus on you afterwards.
Yeah, and even though it's only which is amazing for a vaccine, 95% effective against getting sick. It's, so far as we can tell, 100% effective against dying from COVID. Even the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is only like 60-something% effective against getting sick, is still literally no one in the trials who got COVID died of COVID who had the full course of the vaccine. So this is really, really effective against serious illness and death. Even the worst vaccines
Isn't it interesting? You're allowed to speculate baselessly about the coronavirus like Whoopi's doing as long as you're on that side of it.
Yeah.
You could do that all day. If you're on the other side of it, no. Then you're going to have a problem. I think she says also, but Israel's a lot smaller than we are. Well, right. We know Israel's a lot smaller than we are. But if you have a lot of people who get sick, then there's a bigger percentage of the population. Also, it's about 10 feet long, Israel. It's a tiny little country, and so it doesn't. They've got bigger challenges that we have in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and so then this happened yesterday. This stuff on The View, and then I didn't think that much of it, honestly, especially since Tom was against playing any Fauci audio yesterday, but. then she was taking so much heat on Twitter for it. Vin Gupta he's from CNN, right?
We played him. He's a punk. He's a guy who said you can't be totally liberated.
He said the rejection of real, genuine expertise is what led us to today. So misguided to see people like Meghan McCain calling for the replacement of Dr. Fauci.
He's a madman, that guy. And he has been saying now for months, long before we had the vaccine, that afterwards you still can't go out. You still can't do it. So he's believed this forever. He is a madman.
We'll know when the science makes sense. Or we could have him just say, yeah, and then we'll get him on the other side when he's wrong. I don't know what is best, but I do know that
I know what I'm saying is controversial. I really do.
You got to do. I understand. It has nothing to do with you being.
And say something different.
We'll be right back when we come back.
There goes that.
Yeah. So then Meghan McCain tweeted this morning saying about the Vin Gupta thing. She said, he told me, not Vin Gupta, but Fauci told me not to wear a mask and that masks don't work when I was 3 months pregnant in the middle of Manhattan. He then later admitted it was an intentional lie so we would give masks to essential workers. Now I'm being told to wear 2 masks. But yes, I'm misguided.
Right. Here's Vin Gupta, by the way.
Just because you get vaccinated with that second dose does not mean you should be participating in things like traveling in the middle of an out-of-control pandemic or that you're liberated from masks. Mm-hmm. Everything still applies until all of us get the 2-dose regimen. And we don't think that's going to happen until June, July.
Right. And so that's now been proven faulty as well. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, a 1-dose regimen is doing just fine, as a matter of fact. So these guys are madmen, and a lot of them are doctors. There's a good education that we've had in the last year. We can learn a lot of things. Maybe messaging from Trump, thinking on the fly about a pandemic in front of people isn't a good idea. Yeah. And also, a lot of doctors are madmen, including that guy. And some of them are incompetent. Doctors aren't immune from being incompetent. Everybody can be incompetent. Mm-hmm. By the way, Al, it's just a little aside here. There's been great concern since I blew my stack on the show last evening.
Well, yeah, because we left it in on the YouTube.
Yes, it's there. You can hear the tirade on the YouTube. But it is. I am recording today. Mm-hmm. Although today would have been we would have been at DEF CON 1 today, I think, if
you hadn't hit record. For
other reasons. Yeah, if I hadn't hit record. But yes, and I worry about this too, is that generally when I'm blowing my stack, it's about something that happens that's not a person, except it's definitely dogs. The dogs, yes. The dogs, one in particular, I have a iffy relationship with. And I always wonder sometimes if our neighbors, considering it's usually when I'm letting them out, that one of the dogs does something very bad constantly. If our neighbors think I'm yelling at a kid. Including, since actually one of the dogs is named Dave, too. So that's like not a dog name. So either I have to fix my temper, Alice, or the world needs to change and get better and stop harassing me. So I've decided to put the world on notice that it better stop harassing me immediately. I better get an inner signal to turn on the volume and record. And I expect God, and you're friends with God because you go to church and you're a very religious person. Will you please let him know that I expect all of these hassles to end at once?
How about remember I taught you in the beginning of Psalm 3 to say when you're mad?
No. Was it an apology from the deities to me?
No, it was, "O Lord, why do those who afflict me multiply? Many are those who rise up against me."
Ooh, I like that. So it is somebody else's fault. Correct. All right.
No, it's the Psalms are like an outpouring in a lot of cases of like frustration and grief and like putting it forward to God and saying like there's so many things against me, God. Like how come all this stuff is afflicting me?
Well, and what is God's resolution to this situation, to these ongoing situations?
But you should try praying it, and then maybe you'll find out.
I'm asking you to do that. Use some of your credits, Alice, to get me off the hook on some of this stuff. All right. So if you've been on social media today, the image of the day have been these really,
shipping containers?
Yes, these 10-foot by 10-foot cinder block containers with bars on them that don't look palatial and seem to be, to me, some place where somebody would be incarcerated in a solitary manner. That's what it seems to me. As it turns out, these are images that have just come out from along the border. That these are the new
how does Washington
soft
Post
and
put
comfy.
it here?
Soft and comfy. Oh yeah,
Washington Post calls them the first migrant facility for children opens under Biden.
You know, I'm glad you put it that way. Let's just go by the Washington Post, two Washington Post article and a New York Times. Two Washington Post articles from today. One, no, Biden's new border move isn't like Trump's kids in cages. The second one is Biden isn't putting kids in cages like Trump, as the Washington Post desperately tries to do public relations for the Biden administration. And this is too good. This is too good. And we knew this. We called this in the very first podcasts that I was doing back in wherever it was. We said that kids in cages were coming back if Biden wins.
Well,
Kids in cages are coming back if any president wins.
Because there's kids showing up at the border and no one's with them.
Exactly.
So they have to live somewhere while we figure out what to do with them. There's just no other solution to that problem. You have to put them up in some sort of facility of some kind. And the liberals, wanted to call it a cage when Trump was president and wanted to call it,
In all the photo ops of crying down by the border and all that stuff. And I'll look on Facebook to see if all those good people who zeroed in on me in 2018 and said, I hope you can do some self-reflection.
Don't look away.
My kid was literally shaking at this, came down crying. Why would are they going to put me in a cage, Mommy? Jesus.
Why is the Biden administration reopening a temporary facility for migrant children in Texas?
Well, first, the policy of this administration, as you well know, but just for others, is not to expel unaccompanied children who arrive at the border. And the process, how it works, is that Customs and Border
Oh, there's a policy. You mean there's context for all this stuff?
Oh.
Control continue to transfer unaccompanied children to the HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement. That can take a couple of days. I just want to give this context because people need to understand the process.
Oh, context is a nice thing, isn't it? Before you compare us to the people who did the identical thing, let me give you some background so you can fill up your news content holes with that.
But because of COVID-19 protocols, the social distancing requirements, the capacity of existing Office of Refugee Resettlement shelters has been significantly reduced because, of course, you can't have a child in every bed. There needs to be spacing, and we abide by those spacing to protect the kids who are living in those facilities for a short period of time.
Families being separated. But you know what, little Billy? No, don't worry about it. It's not that you're alone in this cinder block hut. It's that these are
with
protocols.
bars on the window.
COVID protocols. Nighty-night.
And to ensure the health and safety of these kids, HHS took steps to open an emergency facility to add capacity where these children can be provided the care they need while they are safely.
An emergency facility. No, they are not kitchen cages. So that's fine. It's an emergency facility with bars and a lock on the outside.
Before they are safely placed with families and sponsors. So it's a temporary reopening during COVID-19. Our intention is very much
a temporary reopening. Isn't that interesting? During COVID-19. And why would those facilities be filling up with kids right now? I wonder, is anybody culpable? Is there more context for that? Is there anybody culpable for suggesting that there's going to be a what's that called? When it'd be a huge amnesty?
To close it, but we want to ensure that we can follow COVID protocols as unaccompanied minors come into.
Well, kids, we all know that kids are dying from COVID more than anybody else, so that's it. And so, and remember. It's now our problem because you're not letting the families adjudicate the stuff in Mexico anymore. They're coming into the United States. You're not kicking them out because you're so humane and you care so much about the kids is why they have to be in your jails now. So there you go. But the difference is Trump actually was hard on immigration, and that was that.
And told people don't come here. And they got the message and understood not to come here, unlike when the Biden administration says, don't come here, wink, wink. we're
Under
passing
Trump,
amnesty
there have been
soon.
horrifying scenes at the border of kids being kept in cages, and Kamala Harris said, basically,
Ducey is he is bleep eating. There's no doubt about that. I mean, these are absolutely legitimate questions, considering everybody in this administration, who's essentially most of the Obama administration, has been on record completely criticizing Trump for inhumane behavior. So this is bleep eating to say under Trump there are horrific images. Forcing the name Trump into the question, that is a part of the dark arts, but I enjoy it.
babies in cages is a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. So how is this any different than that?
We very much feel that way. These are facilities. Let me be clear here. One, there's a pandemic going on.
Oh, well, nothing complements a deadly, crippling pandemic for a little kid, which has already scrambled his life, like being incarcerated. There's nothing that more buffering to his little feelings.
I'm sure you're not suggesting that we have children right next to each other in ways that are not COVID safe, are you?
I'm suggesting that
that was quintessential Obama administration wiseassery.
Yeah.
Putting the question back on the reporters.
Yeah.
Obama used to do it himself. All of his press people used to do it as well. What is your plan? What do you think we should do? Let me ask you. You know so much. What do you think? But this is too good.
Kamala Harris said that this facility, putting people in this facility, was a human rights abuse committed by the United States government. And Joe Biden said, under Trump, there have been horrifying scenes of at the border of kids being kept in cages. Now it's not under Trump; it's under Biden.
This is not kids being kept in cages.
No.
This is kids. This is a facility that was opened that's going to follow the same standards as other HHS facilities. It is not a replication, certainly not.
I love the idea of the sound of the cell door closing and resonating through the cavernous halls and telling them it's okay. No, this is a facility.
It's a facility. It meets the same standard as all of our HHS facilities, in which we had numerous accusations under the Obama administration of abuses and problems, and got called out by the UN for human rights abuses under the Obama administration. And then AFP completely pulled the article off their website once they realized that it was about the Obama years and not about, the Trump human rights abuses. That. So, yeah, but I mean, and even remember, she's like, these aren't cages. These are facilities just like all the other HHS facilities. Oh, so what were the ones under Trump then? The ones that the Trump administration was ordering Wayfair furniture for. Doesn't exactly sound like a concentration camp.
And by the way, the Trump ones were the Obama-Biden facilities.
Right.
So wait a second.
And
so
Trump was
Obama has facilities, Trump has cages, Biden has facilities, but it's all the same building.
Yeah, they just change their name depending on what administration is in office.
That is never our intention of replicating the immigration policies of the past administration, but we are in a circumstance where we are not going to expel unaccompanied minors at the border.
Circumstances. Isn't that interesting?
It turns out there's a circumstance where kids are showing up at the border and we don't know whose kids they are, and the people they're with don't seem like the parents. Who knew that? That's such a weird circumstance. It's so strange.
They keep talking about Joe Biden, amnesty, and dreamers, and I don't know where they get this vernacular.
Yeah, because we've told them this is not a good time for us.
I do love this. Every year of the Obama administration, one or two news agencies would do Obama wanted equal pay for women, and they would do an audit and find out that the White House, the West Wing, was underpaying women significantly, paying women lower wages than the men significantly. And there are always, every single year, the response back to the reporter was there were circumstances that arose that in this case made certain necessities at this time have to be tweaked and in order to in a full-throated way, rise to the challenges that this administration is handling right now. And so personnel issues are something we're working on. There were always circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
Always circumstances.
That would be inhumane. That is not what we are going to do here as an administration.
Inhumane.
We need to find places that are safe under COVID protocols for kids to be, where they can have access to education, health and mental services, consistent with their best interests. Our goal is for them to then be transferred to families or sponsors. So this is our effort to ensure that kids are not in close proximity, and that we're abiding by the health and safety standards that the government has been set out.
Yeah, that is a dishonest answer about a topic that was used to fillet Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. I think it's too good. It's wonderful. It's certainly hypocrisy. And at the same time, it just goes, it's wonderful to see these West Wing, the TV show, attitudinal people having to twist themselves in circles like this. It's wonderful to see. The immigration situation is going to get worse.
Yeah, it already has gotten worse, clearly, because COVID didn't start after Joe Biden took office. So I assume the HHS had COVID protocols in place before the end of the Trump administration. So the fact that they've had to open new facilities now, I understand that they probably have reduced capacity from what they normally would have, but clearly they have more unaccompanied minors at the border than they did during the Trump administration if they're having to open new facilities, because the COVID protocols were there. But I mean, clearly people took the message from Trump that there was not, a free pass to get into the United States. And people took the message from the way that Democrats framed the Trump immigration policy and the way that they framed the Biden immigration policy, that the assumption was that Biden would be friendlier to immigration and would be kinder to them. So it's really, if that's really not true, then the Biden campaign shouldn't have messaged that way over the last 2 years and led people to believe that there was a chance of this. This is the same thing that we saw happen with Obama in 2014, when it looked like he was going to make a big push for amnesty and the Dreamer stuff and all these things were going on. And so we ended up with tons of teenage unaccompanied minors showing up at the border. And it was a crisis, absolutely. But it's a crisis that can be solved with your messaging as an administration, because, people see what you're saying and the message that you're putting out there to the world about what your immigration policy is and whether or not you think people should be crossing into the country through Mexico without going through the proper immigration channels. And people take that message and they take it literally. And then you end up with a problem on your hands like Obama did in 2014, or like Joe Biden is having this problem now. I predict that, that this is just the beginning of the disaster.
Yes, and I would like to see and take good measure of those folks who cared so much about kids. This isn't about politics. This is about children. I'd like to see how they're acting. I'd like to see how they show their virtue on this particular issue.
Yeah, where is AOC? Is she going to go cry?
Well, I'm talking about people on the extremely noble Facebook and social media posts and
just people
talking points and all the late night comedians. I'll take them too as well. Saying, "Do you remember Kids in Cage? Don't you remember?" Well, there you go. So let's see exactly just how good a person you are. I know you had the avatar and the lawn sign, but let's see. Do they dare? Do they dare? Well, if you criticize Biden at all, then essentially that's crediting Trump. So we'll see. But these people are small. A lot of them are psychotic. So that brings us to Matt Lee. What is Matt Lee's
AP?
Who's Ned Price?
He's the spokesperson at the State Department.
Okay, Matt Lee is the guy who's been there forever. He's the guy who used to actually absolutely brutalize Jen Psaki. Okay, the spokesperson at the State Department set up this clip, Alice, because I'm not sure specifically.
Yeah, so they're talking about Russia policy and about Russia's energy projects that they want to do, and the State Department has been working with these countries in Europe to, put together a policy to oppose this Russia project or whatever. So, but the spokesman, Ned Price is, saying how wonderful it is that we've, put together this thing with these different countries to, check Putin a little bit.
Our strategy, including the legislative strategy, the strategy that, of course, Congress has been behind, has been working to good effect. So we'll continue to work closely with Germany. We'll continue to work closely with our other allies and partners in Europe to uphold Europe's own stated energy security goals.
It's a bit disingenuous to claim credit for the 18 companies winding down. All of this work was done under the previous administration.
Matt,
you guys have only been in only been in office for a month, right? Are you telling me that in the last 4 weeks These 18 companies all of a sudden decided to say, "Oh my God, we better not do
Matt,
anything with."
I am speaking for the
all of that.
I am
taking,
speaking.
You guys are taking credit for stuff that the previous administration did.
I am not.
No?
I am
Yes
speaking for the Department of State.
Okay.
The people who have been working this.
Okay.
The people who are working this now were the same people a month ago. Were the same people
3 months ago.
3
4
months ago. So
okay. All right.
Matt Lee, man, what a badass he is. That is not only reporting, but that's also a bully, and that is good.
Yeah.
To treat a flack like that. That is good. And it's probably actually good for Ned Price. The flack who Price, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Who capitulated. It's good that he did.
Right, yeah, eventually. I mean, and I think he's saying like, well, I'm the spokesman for the State Department. We're not the Biden administration, but he's a Biden administration State Department spokesperson. You know, he's new. So that's, you know, and there's, you know,
he is the Biden administration.
There is going to be a new Secretary of State and all those things that go with the new policies. So when you're up there and you're telling the press, like, look what we did, you know, and you have to be pressed with very specific questions to get at the fact that this is something that's been going on for months, including under the Trump administration, and that essentially Trump was doing all the same things that everybody said he ought to be doing towards Russia. It's just interesting.
Alice Shattuck, what is your middle name?
Okay.
What is your social security number?
No.
Cyril. I just want to take a picture. I'll post that because he's been turning the volume up on the iPhone every time Mommy turns it down because here he goes. He's turning it up right now.
Yeah, don't say it out loud. Then he knows to do it again.
So
he understands English.
What is the Amazon story and the Slate story? There's a Slate story. There's been another cancellation. Another scalp has been gotten.
Oh, yeah. This is fascinating.
For a guy who's been a long time big progressive.
So this is a sort of ancillary cancellation to the Don McNeil cancellation at the New York Times that we've talked about previously. So Slate is this like liberal magazine. They have podcasts, including one that has a host called Mike Pesca. He's a liberal. Can we at least compromise on the volume? Here, how about that?
Pesca is a big liberal.
He's a big liberal. But he's a big liberal that thinks Don McNeil maybe shouldn't have been fired. That there's maybe some gray area there because Don McNeil, when he was on a work trip with some younger colleagues, he, had a discussion where he was talking about whether or not it's ever appropriate for white people to ever use the N-word. And during the course of the discussion, he said the word, conversationally. He didn't call someone it, but in this conversation about is it ever okay for white people to say this?
Right.
And so Mike Pesca essentially
having
said,
an analytical conversation, the X's and O's of when to use the word, or if you would, in this context, and this and this.
Right.
Okay.
So a couple years ago, Mike Pesca had a similar problem in which he had used the word in a context like that. He was on his podcast with a black co-host, and he said, something about how if there was ever a circumstance in which white people could say this. And the black colleague complained, HR handled it. They made him re-record the segment of the podcast without the word in it and, disciplined him in whatever way at that time. Right. So anyway, with the Don McNeil thing, it came up in their company Slack chat at Slate, which all the interesting things seem to happen in media company Slack chat.
Let me tell you something. I won't comment on my own company, but I can tell you my friend Al's company, Slack, is a battleground between departments. It is a tough place.
So apparently the Slate one is too, because he essentially was saying on the Slate Slack chat, this was a gray area. This was known about by the Times at the time. They disciplined him whatever way at the time. For it to come back to haunt him a few years later and Nicole Hannah-Jones to get involved and get him fired because there was this problem on a work trip a couple of years ago. And he said the word in a conversation as if white people could ever say it. That's not necessarily, it's maybe for some kind of discipline, but not like a fireable offense in his view.
We have no other verboten English word.
Yeah, where you can't even talk about how it's verboten.
Their subject matter, you can't talk about it. But this is like, you can't say the name Voldemort or whatever.
Right.
This is forbidden. An instant curse will befall you. You can't say this word when analyzing words.
Right.
You can't. I mean, I'm not talking about punitively or the slang. It must not be. You cannot be mentioned in any sense. We all must pretend that the word does not exist.
Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, the whole thing with him, like from a year ago or whatever, from him like using it in a podcast. So after this happened, Slate came out with a big sensitive language policy that says essentially you can never do this. But there's another Slate podcast called Slow Burn that was hosted by Joel Anderson, who's a black reporter, and it was about Biggie and Tupac, and they used the N-word on that podcast, but those people didn't get canceled. But Mike Pesca, had to re-record his segment and everything. So anyway, now this year, after the Don McNeil thing, he's talking about this on the company chat and saying, like, I don't think this firing was necessarily appropriate. And he's now fired.
That's all it took.
That's all it took. He didn't say the word in the company Slack chat.
Right, but he's on the wrong side of an issue that they feel strongly about.
Right.
And so they resurface this old, controversy and use it to fatally roast him, and he's done. He's done.
For commenting that maybe somebody else using the word in a way that they at the time believed wasn't offensive, that firing maybe was more of a gray area than an immediate fireable offense. For saying that, he's fired. So now I assume we'll be canceled and removed from the internet for talking about the story about the guy who was fired for talking about the story of the guy who was fired.
And then if somebody talks about us,
then they're fired too.
Right.
So, I mean, like, yeah, so how many layers deep does it go?
So I think there's some good quotes in the Slate article from colleagues. Did you see any of those?
Yeah, so, like, one Slate staffer said that Mike Pesca's, Mike Pesca's the only one causing these kinds of conflicts. We have other staffers who hold opinions that are unpopular, but they're not provoking their colleagues in a harassment-worthy way.
Provoking their colleagues, God. Saying something that's, that's got some intellectual heft, and with the respect to use honesty in discourse, is a provocation now.
Right. Here's another staffer. I feel outraged, an anonymous Slate staffer said to, this is Defector on website, defector.com, that this article is on. I cannot believe I had to watch him enthusiastically provoke people on whether or not it is appropriate to use a racist slur. Other Slate staffers expressed frustration and anger. I don't want to be in a workplace where people feel emboldened to have this argument. People's humanity is not an intellectual debate. So, yeah, it's about their humanity.
What specific college course is it that you learn about your humanity and how injured the world could be, injurious the world could be for you at every turn in any subtle way? Even somebody's speech, even speech that should be inoffensive because it's purely analytical, clinical speech. What subject is that, Alice? You're a more college person than I am. What is there? What subject is that?
It's usually like the grievance studies areas, the gender studies, racial studies, African studies, those types of courses, because it's all about, it's all about privilege and these sort of nebulous microaggression kind of topics. But
I love the word nebulous. I intend to use it more.
Yeah, I think
yesterday I learned a word. You know what it was?
Inert.
Correct.
Inert.
Sally, do you know what inert means? We discussed it yesterday. It's the pickle jars are glass because they're inert.
Because they can cause a chemical reaction.
Well, the glass can't.
It means that there's no air in it.
Well, kind of. Mommy, I told Mommy what it meant.
It's inactive.
Yesterday. Right.
Things that are inert are chemically inactive, or like things that have inertia are physically inactive.
Okay,
They're
bring us
just
to
Amazon. Wait, I'm not quite entirely done with Mike Pesca.
I apologize. I thought you were inert there for a second. I thought that.
I was not entirely inert yet. I was not. But it's funny because then on Twitter, a short time after this whole Mike Pesca debacle broke, Are you familiar with Thomas Chatterton Williams?
Yeah,
He's a
man.
black
Yes, I
writer
am.
who lives in France.
Yes.
And so he
He's
got
very
into
good.
an argument with Kirsten Powers about this issue,
Right.
in which she was saying that it's right for Mike Pesca to be fired. Colleague Joel Anderson had said, for black employees, it's a small ask not to hear that particular slur and have debate about whether it's okay for white employees to use that particular slur.
Now, before you go any further, I want the audience, I want you guys listening right now to get ready for perhaps the most beautiful piece of, is it irony, Alice?
Mm-hmm.
Poetic irony. One of the most stunning displays. Me? Yes. Why am I speaking loudly? Yes. Because that's what I do. That's all I have, Sally. Well, I'm resonating. So you're about to hear. This is a palate cleanse.
Mm-hmm.
Empty your minds. Get ready for how beautiful this is.
Right. So Thomas Chatterton Williams now, who is a black writer, says, Joel Anderson, the person who works at Slate who's upset about Mike Pesca, Joel Anderson has used that term in reference to me on this website. And Kirsten Power says, what's your point? Does that mean white people should be saying it? And Thomas Chatterton Williams says, I think that a white person mentioning it not derogatorily is not as bad as a black person using it derogatorily. And Kirsten Powers says, okay, not sure why you are trying to change the subject. Feels like whataboutism, which I don't entertain. My tweet was about white people who argue with black people about when it's okay to use the N-word.
How beautiful is that?
Says the white person arguing with the black person
Correct.
about when it's okay to use the N-word.
How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? Yeah, that was just an absolute masterpiece.
It's kind of like when the white privileged Antifa kids yell at the black cops about white supremacy. It somehow loses some of its power to hurt when it's a white person hurling the white supremacy charge at a black person. But that's Oh,
okay. Oh, yes, we've got I'm sorry.
I was gonna say you're missing Randy Weingarten.
Oh, Randy Weingarten. Oh, yes, that's. Thank you, Alice. That's very helpful. This is when Randy Weingarten with Dan Primack of Axios early today, and this is also just too beautiful to be true.
Is there a point, and maybe you think we've already passed it, is there a point in which kids have been out of physical in-person school for so long that the education that they've lost isn't really recoverable? That the third grade, the fourth grade, the kindergarten they lost, they can take extra semesters in the summer, but it can't really be fixed.
No, I don't believe that. I believe that kids are resilient and kids will recover, but we as adults have to meet their needs, their emotional needs, their social needs, their learning needs.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Kids are resilient. The kids who we're told by Randy Weingarten and all these union folks every year absolutely need teachers because they're our most precious natural resource, and they need the empathy and emotional support and the education that only these teachers
highly trained professionals.
Exactly. No, they're resilient. Some of them aren't resilient, and we're hearing the stories about the ones who aren't resilient more and more.
Yeah, and
just a vile thing to say.
Some actually, potentially millions, nobody has actually done real math on the estimates for this yet, have just fallen out of the education system, haven't shown up for virtual classes. Schools don't know where they are, what they're doing, and...
You know what? They're resilient, Alice.
They're resilient.
They'll be fine. You know, we need to, you need to let us, by passing this bill, let us show them a little bit of compassion and love, and they'll be fine.
You know who else very loving lefties are sure is going to be fine is Tiger Woods, who unfortunately was in what seems like a really bad car accident today.
Yes.
And is in surgery and apparently had very severe injuries to his legs and probably is very unlikely to play golf again ever. But
Jesus, Alice.
Well, I mean, this is what I'm reading
Dr. Jill
in
Biden
magazines. This is what I'm reading online. That it looks bad. I mean, he was already possibly not going to play golf again because he had back problems. But what I'm hearing about it doesn't sound great. So But but lefties on the internet have decided that all is fair because he apparently accepted a medal from Trump and was, friendly with Trump. So that's fine. He deserved it. One Twitter user wrote, "The universe smites Tiger for accepting that medal from Trump." Another says, "Tiger Woods' career over." Well, he did support Trump, so stop caring about Tiger when he started golfing with Trump. Even some blue check people got in on the action. Philip Bump of the Washington Post, he's a national correspondent in the Washington Post, tweeted, he retweeted the story about Tiger Woods involved in car crash and says, "Yeah, we know, crash pulling out of his driveway or something," in reference to his previous escapades. But it's really, not the moment. Like
they're vile people.
There's plenty of celebrities that I disagree with politically. I mean, as a conservative, almost all celebrities disagree with you politically, so we're used to it. But I can't imagine when somebody is injured or suffers some devastating loss or passes away or whatever, like behaving the way that these people do. It's so bizarre to me that that's your first instinct is to go for that. But I don't know.
Do you have, before we go, do you have the Amazon? No.
I don't know about the Amazon store. You're going to have to tell me about
No,
that.
not Amazon. It's, yeah, it is. It's, a guy wrote a snarky book about trans.
Oh, that. Yes, I do know what you're talking about. This is Ryan T. Anderson's book. It's been out a few years, actually. It's called When Harry Became Sally. And it's about, these like transgender issues and all this stuff. But it's been out a few years. It's been available Amazon, Apple Books, all these places. And Amazon now has decided that it's too dangerous to exist. And so they've removed it from their website. So you can no longer buy it on Amazon.
So I was,
and not only that, but there was some confusion. Apple might have removed it briefly and then put it back. But when people were tweeting pictures of like screenshots of it having been taken down from Amazon or from Apple, Twitter was censoring the pictures as sensitive content. The picture of the cover of the book,
really,
from the screenshot on Amazon. So, that's, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to only do good things for his book sales, which likely had flagged a couple years
Alice,
on.
Right now, and I don't believe that you want to, but right now, if you are willing to pay $10.99 for the Kindle version, $22.49 for an Amazon Prime version of the paperback, or $40, $39.01 on Prime on Amazon, you can buy Mein Kampf right now. It is available for you, but that book on transgender whatever is not available.
Nope, gone.
So that is how the world is. I was listening to the commentary podcast today, and Noah Rothman, who I'd like to get on, was talking about, he thinks that this stuff is going to be reversed. There's going to be a big blowback, cultural blowback against this stuff. And I don't see that. I've seen no reason to believe that's happened. I think the cultural blowback may have been Trump or aspects of Trumpism, but I don't see it ending. Alice.
I think you should continue your thought because I was not ready for that.
I don't see it ending. Oh, so we're not listening?
I was not listening. No, so I don't know what you said.
Okay. Let's take it up tomorrow. Could we get downstairs?
I don't know what you don't see ending.
Oh, we'll finish that thought tomorrow. I'm going to give you 24 hours, Alice, and tomorrow you better have an answer ready. Thanks, everybody, by the way, for listening. Our listenership is increasing, and we appreciate it, and you checking in. Let us know if there's more stuff that you want to hear or that you don't want to hear. My feeling is that we're just trying to figure all this crap out every day with you, and doing our best to try to identify what exactly is going on in this world, because these are extraordinary times, and now we're in the most extraordinary times of the extraordinary times. So thanks for all the support. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks again. We love all our listeners. We have the best listeners ever. And you can find us, if you are a listener, on Twitter at Burn.
By the way, Alice, you know what? We need to... we got some great recommendations for what to call the fans.
Oh, right. That's true.
And,
we need to address this tomorrow.
I mean, as wrong as Shatheads feels.
We have at least 2 people recommended that one.
Yes, part of me wonders if I'm being deeply insulted.
But you're okay with it.
Yes, it's something very tempting about it. But also, there was the burners or barrelers as well. I hate to put you on the spot, but you should go through this tomorrow.
Burnouts was another popular recommendation.
There's some awesome ones. You know what? Let's make a housekeeping thing. So that tomorrow we'll get a bunch of emails and submissions like this. And there's been some funny. You guys are funny bastards. You got to say that on Twitter, guys and girls. Is there a girl word for bastard? Well, girls can be bastards.
I guess so.
I think so, right?
I suppose.
Well, why would I say guy? Well, you all are funny bastards. How about that?
Okay.
Is that better? Okay, here you go.
To see more of our Twitter interactions, that's Burn Barrel Pod on Twitter. We're also on Facebook.com/Burn Barrel Podcast. We are on YouTube. Tom Shattuck's Burn Barrel is the channel there where you can subscribe and watch video editions of the podcast. You can also send us an email with your suggestions, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com.
I'll be with Gerald Hibernius Atkinson.
Callahan.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Callahan tomorrow morning.